Yo, what's going on, people? My name is Femi Koleoso. I'm the drummer and band leader for Ezra Collective, and I'm the drummer for Gorillaz. And this is the sound advice that I have for you. So I was thinking a lot about what should I actually talk about by way of advice, and I think the best thing that I could talk to you guys about is essentially what I think is the most important thing about music, and that for me would be sounding like yourself. There's a Dr. Seuss quote that I always talk about because it means a lot to me, and it's no one can be youer than you. And I think really and truly, especially with everything going on with Instagram, with YouTube, there is so much to do with music. You can almost get into the real trap of trying to be someone else, but you always just want to be yourself. And I'm going to kind of take you through the journey and the process of how I sound like myself, because as you can imagine, you're playing drum beats and songs that are popular. Everyone knows how the drum beat's meant to go. You're recording with artists that have a sound, etc, etc, etc. But it's really important that I always sound like Femi, because that's the only strength I have. I can never sound like this drum over there. I can never sound like that drum over there. But if I can sound like myself, then I'm doing something right. And that for me is the most important thing. So before I even get into the advice of how I get into sounding like yourself, I would just say to anyone that's watching this, thinking that you're going to be able to sound like me or sound like the next YouTube video you might watch or whatever, regardless of the instrument, whether it's drums, keys, whatever it is, the aim should never be to sound like someone else, but the aim should always be to sound like yourself. And that for me is like the best advice you could be given in music, because it kills insecurity, because I can only sound like Femi. I can't sound like anyone else. There are many drummers better than me, but no one can sound better than me at being me. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, this is beyond drumming. This is just advice in music and maybe even life, how to go about it. But let me just show you a little bit of how I got my own sound, sounding like Femi. And really and truly, your sound is a product of everything that you love. If you ever hear something and you hate it, you will likely never sound like that, because you won't listen to it in a way of inspiration. You won't hear it and try and gravitate towards it. There's certain types of music or certain songs I've listened to and I don't really vibe with it, and I'm unlikely to sound like that drummer or that band or whatever. However, if you hear something and you absolutely love it, you know when you listen to a tune or something and it rocks your soul, you're like, rah, I'm gonna put this in my playlist and listen to it every day of my life. If a song ever does that to you, then you need to take big and serious notice of it, because that song is a building block of your sound. Your sound essentially is a collection of everything that you love. So for example, I'm gonna start with probably my favorite ever drummer. He goes by the name of Tony Allen, and I had the real pleasure of having drum lessons with him. He's a hero of mine. He played the drums for Fela Kuti. He put his own records out, collaborated with a whole host of incredible artists. And he's probably one of my favorite ever musicians, beyond drummers, musicians. And so, of course, every drum beat that he played really spoke to me, but one spoke to me in a really deep way, and that is Colonial Mentality. It's a Fela Kuti tune. I'll play it for you for a little bit so you can hear what I'm talking about. So. That is like my own interpretation of a very popular and famous Tony Allen beat. But like I said, it's a beat that the first time I ever heard it, it like shook my soul. So then the question is, when a song does that to you, what do you do with it in order to get your own sound? So with that specific beat, there's one little area of it that really, for me, is the bit that gets me, and it gets me. Someone else might have a different part, but for me, it's the Tony Allen signature double bass drum sound. That sound is like, it shakes me. It might seem small, but for me, that's what does it for me. That moment there is something that I gravitate towards. So what do you do with that drum beat? First of all, you do what we call the word transcribe. You learn to play it. You learn to get the nuances, the swing, the bounce, the speed. You learn to play it. And then you mess around with it a little bit, but you get what Tony Allen was getting at. You get that sound. So you take that moment and you put it to one side. Another product of your sound, sounding like you, like I said, it might be the Tony Allen drum beat, but it's also everything else. Another drummer that has really influenced my sound is a drummer called Questlove, particularly his drumming on D'Angelo's album Voodoo. And I'm going to play a drum beat from that album, Chicken Grease, for example. That's the sound of Questlove on Chicken Grease on D'Angelo's album Voodoo. But across the whole album, Quest sounds just incredible. Like Tony Allen, Questlove is a hero of mine. His playing on that album is probably some of my favorite drumming of all time. But something that sticks out to me about Questlove is the sound of his rim shot. That sound. His rim shot sound really speaks to me. Everything he does just sonically sounds amazing. But that little part in particular is something that I kind of stole and I took it for myself, and it became a building block of my own sound. And so we've got that Tony Allen double, and then we've got that rim shot sound of Questlove. And then we move on to something that was a foundation of the way that I play the drums, and that's the sound of jazz music, and in particular the drumming of Max Roach, who was a bebop drummer in the 1950s, 60s, etc. He's a real hero of mine. His records with like Clifford Brown, his record with Sonny Rollins, Saxophone Colossus, etc. He's a super bad man, like he's just cold. I'm passionate about Max Roach. In the same way that I transcribed Tony Allen, transcribed Questlove, Max Roach is a drummer I transcribed heavily from his solo album Drums Unlimited, but also just the way that he would play a swing beat. And it's a little bit, it's a journey that I'm on, still trying to get the sound and nuance of his swing. But I think about Saxophone Colossus, there's a tune called Strode Road. It kind of has a really cool head. That's like the sound of Max Roach, and it's the sound that I've been working on and studying on and continue to work and study all the time. It's kind of it's the type of music you're likely to be told when you're in drum education, particularly jazz education. You'll get told, transcribe Max Roach. And yes, I totally agree. Transcribe him, but don't ignore the first things that I said. Transcribe the Tony Allen of your life. Transcribe the Questlove of your life. Do you hear what I'm saying? Not just the Max. And so you've got the Max Roach sound, but what is something that I love about Max's playing? And it's the way that he swings. He's one of the hardest swinging drummers of all time. And I'll say that with my chest. He swings. That ride cymbal, that... Like, that's my own interpretation of Max's swing beat, but Max's swing beat is undeniably one of the most swinging swing beats there are. Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm passionate about that ride cymbal that Max plays. And so I try and incorporate that swing, that ding 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 ding, that laid back sound, not quite banging the metronome on the one, but that kind of swing a little bit away from it, but you got like a swing sound to it. That's something that I get from Max Roach. So we got the double from Tony Allen, the rim shot from Questlove, and then that swing from Max Roach. And then finally, something that I grew up with, part of who I am, the building blocks of who I am, is the sound of Nigerian Baptist church kind of songs. They're the songs that I first learned to play the drums to. Something, it would sound a little bit like... So you've got the sound of Tony Allen, you've got the sound of Questlove, you've got the sound of Max Roach, and then of course the sound of Nigerian church sounds. That's me as a drummer, that's who I am. The building blocks of my music would be that. And so I'm talking about how to sound like you, and I'm just talking about other people. The moment you start to sound like yourself is when you blend it all together. That for me is the moment you start to sound like you. When you blend everything that you love, and never be ashamed about anything you love. If you really, really love Max Roach, but you love German techno as well, that's perfect. Figure out how to put them together. If you really, really love like the way that Philly Joe Jones plays like ballads, but you also really love Slipknot, it's your role to work out how to put them together. That's what I've tried to do. So a drum beat which kind of incorporates all of those elements is the drum beat that I played on the Tiny Desk with Georgia Smith, On My Mind, which is a drum beat I'm proud of, because even though it's Georgia's song, it's Georgia's vibe, that drum beat sounds like me. It's got the rim shot of Questlove. It's got the double of Tony Allen. It's got the swing of Max Roach. And it's got the hi-hat flavor of the Nigerian Gospel Baptist Church. And when you put them all together, and that is me trying to sound like Femi Koleoso. So to conclude, all of what I said was a little demonstration of how I think musically, into my music and into how I play the drums. But never be ashamed of what you love. Never be ashamed of what you like. Transcribe and be influenced by everything cool that you see, and spend a good portion of your practice time working out how to smash them all together. And that would be my sound advice. God bless you all. Peace.